Welcome back to the Morning Show here on the Rise News. Preparing a child for the world that doesn't yet exist is not an easy task for any teacher, which begs the question whether the critical 21st century skills every student needs to survive and succeed in our world. What abilities and traits will serve them in a time that's changing and developing so rapidly? Well, joining us this morning to speak on this is the founder of WAVE, Misan Rewane. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, when you look at the statistics of unemployment in Nigeria, it's quite gloomy. But in your opinion, what would you say is the fundamental challenge here? Why do we have so many unemployed people, apart from the jobs not being there?
Sure. So it's a bit of a supply and a demand problem. You have on the supply side, the education system is not giving young people the skills that the demand side wants. So think about 21st century critical skills that you just talked about, how to think critically, how to learn and adapt, how to work with other people, how to manage your emotions, how to take initiative, multidisciplinary thinking, not just, oh, I studied this and this is the only lens that I have to the world. And then also young people do not have the work experience. So they finish school and they haven't actually had a chance to apply any of the theory that they've learned all the years. And then lastly, you might argue that a lot of young people don't have the personal networks to get a foot in the door. So you might argue that some of who you know and some of what you know, and a lot of young people do not have either. On the other hand, you have the demand side that is sort of up-credentialing is the word you use, where you say, look, every time I even interview a graduate, I'm not getting the skills I want. So you know what, for my PA, I'm going to ask that they have a master's degree. So you keep raising the bar thinking that you're solving for the problem, but actually you're just asking for a more empty credential. So is 4 years in a university, is 6 years in a secondary school actually delivering the skills that you think it should, or it used to in our parents' time, and it isn't. And so that's the challenge. It's like, how do you get both sides talking to each other? Not just passively consuming whatever the education system sends to you, but as an employer saying, how do I get in front of the classroom? How do I get in front of the curriculum and influence it so that it's teaching the things that I want? And then also on the education side, how do I start to bring in industry into the classroom? How do I invite employers to tell me, okay, let's look at my curriculum. How is it no longer fitting what it is that you want? Maybe 20 years ago, it was important to know X number of things, but now it's a whole new ballgame. And so there's a lot of conversations that need to be happening across employers, educators, and the government facilitating a lot of that.
Okay, looking at our educational system, using your own experience, I was reading your profile earlier, how you had to leave the country to study out of the country because there were some deficiencies in the system. Are we not being too hard on our educational system? Because some of our graduates from local schools, they move up the way and they go out of this country and they excel. Are we not being too hard on our system?
So I definitely agree with the fact that a lot of people are transcending what the system is giving them. They are just innate skills that we develop from childhood, the ability to learn, grit and resilience, the ability to adapt. And those things, once a young person has them, they will find that education wherever. So a lot of people are learning and educating themselves regardless of what is happening in the classroom. And that being said, there are several millions of teachers who are pouring their heart and soul in every day. But as a friend of mine, Moa Defeso, normally says, she says, look, just because a teacher has taught, if the student did not learn, can we say that education has taken place? So there are millions of teachers who are teaching every day, but there are also millions of students who are not learning. Can we say education has occurred? So are we being tough on our system? Is there a more important job than that of a teacher? If we say that the JAMB score to be a doctor is this high, yet the JAMB score to be a teacher is this low, to get an NCE, you need a minimum of 100 in JAMB. To be a doctor, I don't remember what it is, but definitely 250 and above. So why are we saying that our most precious resources deserve the lowest quality when it comes to performance at the academic level? Now, we can have a whole other conversation about whether the testing system and the assessment system is valid, but at the end of the day, we are signaling to the world, give us your worst so that they can train our children, the future of tomorrow.
Perhaps not necessarily. Talking about demand and supply. the competition to enter the College of Medicine is very high. So you just have to raise the bar to take as few people as the space can accommodate. Whereas perhaps the colleges of education, the departments or faculties of education have more space to accommodate more teachers. Not necessarily because they are the worst or the worst performance in JAMB.
I'll never forget a story. So we train a lot of young people and we connect them to jobs in the services sector. And I remember once meeting in Ikotun, meeting a young man who said, you know, he was coming to WAVE because he wanted to get a real job. And I said, okay, when did you finish school? I finished school 7 years ago. I said, okay, and so you haven't had a real job? You want to come and maybe get a job as a waiter? I said, yes. I said, what have you been doing for 7 years? I said, I've been teaching. To him, teaching was not a real job. He was coming to get his first real job, which would have been a waiter in a services sector, maybe earning 30K or something. What is the more noble profession, more important profession than teaching our children? So even if it's about supply and demand and the number of seats, the fact that we are signaling to the world, give us your lowest performers, and we will turn them into our teachers to teach our children. Give us your lowest performers, and we will pay them the lowest, so that they are the most demotivated professional core. There's something fundamental.
You talked about curriculum earlier. Is it a case of the curriculum being irrelevant in today's world, or is it that the employers are just, their demands are being unrealistic?
Well, whether their demands are being unrealistic or not, I think we have to start thinking about the education system, not in isolation, but as an education to employment system.
Okay.
So the work has not been completed if young people did not transition to employment. That could be self-employment, but they have to have transitioned. And so even if employers' demands are high, we have to raise the bar to meet their demands, because that is why we exist. You exist to make young people good citizens through education, give them a frame of reference to think and be good civil actors, but you also exist to give them economic freedom. And so you have to transition them by giving them the skills that the demand side wants. In terms of the curriculum, it is outdated. Education shouldn't just teach people how to know things. And that's what we're doing. We're just teaching young people how to know, cram and pass. We're not teaching young people who they are, how to discover who you are. We're not teaching them how to do things. And doing is not just the technical skills. Doing is the ability to communicate. It's the ability to work with others. It's the ability to use digital tools to connect with the world. And it's not teaching young people that. So there needs to be a curriculum overhaul. I would love to sit with anyone from the National NRDC to just talk to them about how are you thinking about this. We added 35 vocational subjects to the curriculum about 6-7 years ago. Have we equipped the schools to teach them? Have we trained teachers to teach them? Have we connected industry to come into the classroom and actually tell us what is obsolete and what is now needed? We're not having those conversations. A lot of times I sit in these gatherings where the employers are complaining, the school system is not giving us what we want. I sit in these other gatherings with the educators saying, the employers, their demands are too unrealistic. And then young people are left sort of shortchanged in the middle.
So how is WAVE intervening in this conversation?
So, we will be the first to admit that we're kind of putting a Band-Aid, a plaster on the problem, which is we're saying, look, if you finish from the system already and you've been shortchanged, so you're 18 to 35 years old and you can't get access to the formal economy, come to us. We will train you in the skills that employers have told us matter. We will then connect you to economic opportunities, connecting directly to job interviews to get to in front of an employer. We will be your personal network that you don't have. We will connect you to an internship so that you can at least get some work experience to then sell yourself when you're in front of the employer for the full-time job offer. And so we are sort of fixing that group which we call priority A, which is the people who still have 40 years of useful life in them. But if you don't start giving them meaning and hope and dignity of work today, they will turn to all the alternatives that we know are all around us, from northern Nigeria and our recruiting system up there to all the crime and all the stuff that's also going down, Niger Delta, etc. So that's sort of what we're doing with that group. But in terms of longer term, not just putting a Band-Aid on the problem, but fixing the problem at its root cause, we are now beginning to work with the education system, working with secondary school teachers. How do you teach them to incorporate these skills? It's not just the curriculum and what you're teaching, it's even how you teach. I can be teaching a science class and I can be building teamwork. I can be building critical thinking. I can be building communication skills. Remember in school when you used to debate? That was building confidence. There's so many young people who have never had that opportunity to speak in front of a crowd before. And they get into the workplace, they don't know how to make a presentation. They don't know how to think critically because no teacher has ever asked them, what do you think the answer is? They've just been told, copy on the board, cram and pass.
So you deal with this top-tier candidates, like you refer to them, or you connect top-tier candidates with employers?
We work with
everybody.
We don't care if you have a first, we don't actually ask for a secondary school degree. So we don't care if you're the top tier.
Yeah, basically retraining graduates is what you're doing. Yeah. What is the space of this training?
And they're not graduates, by the way. We actually do not require a degree. That's the point. Because less than 10% of Nigerians have a degree, a university degree. So every time we talk about our graduates, we're actually shortchanging 90% of the population who is not going to go to university because there are not enough slots. And so we say we don't care if you have a degree. We don't actually care if you have a secondary school degree.
Okay.
Because what happened was initially we used to ask for a secondary school degree. And then we would meet so many people who finished SS3 and couldn't read and write. Wow. So we said, let's ditch that because clearly asking for a YX certificate does not mean anything anymore. Let's actually just test for the ability to read and write. Because sadly, we will really struggle to get a young person a job if they can't read and write. How can we connect you to adult education so you can learn at least basic literacy and then you can come back and enroll in the academy because you need to be able to follow the concepts that are being taught. But yes, we're essentially running these academies where we have an admissions team we're outreach and admissions, so we go out and find young people.
So what's the duration?
Oh, it's 3.5 weeks. So it's the most intensive.
It's all you need.
It's the most intensive program that a lot of these young people will go through.
To turn them around.
Yeah.
3.5 weeks.
It's 150 hours. Monday to Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. 150 hours is about what you would get in a semester at a university. It's just that you're not going to class 8 to 6 every day, Monday to Saturday. And so that's what we've done is we recognize that a lot of the young people we work with live on less than 15,000 naira a month. So they're low income. And for them sitting in a classroom for more than 1 month, as opposed to being out on the streets hustling to make an income, is too detrimental to them. And so we had to get creative to say, how do we condense a lot of this into 3.5 weeks? And in that 3.5 weeks, everybody will get an unpaid internship for 1 week so that they actually get in front of employers. In that 1 week, 10 to 40% of them will get a job offer. So that from that 1 week, they've been able to demonstrate, you know what, I actually am willing to learn. So it doesn't matter if I don't have the immediate level that you're looking for. That attitude, that willingness to learn, that ability to ask questions, drive and adaptability, those are the things that really set our young people apart. And they're able to prove themselves with employers.
Okay, now this problem is skin deep in the nation. With your
so
own,
deep.
Yes. with your intervention, I don't know the capacity you have. Are you not just scratching the problem on the surface?
Yeah, we are scratching the problem on the surface. You put it exactly well. So in the last 5.5 years, we have graduated just under 3,000 young people from our programs. So we train, literally all through the year, and we have 4 teams that are running trainings, both in Lagos and outside. With our partnership, so we've worked with the Lagos state government. There's a Ready, Set, Work program where we actually take volunteers across the professional corps into final year tertiary institutions and teach young people before they graduate from the tertiary institutions for 13 weekends, the same skills. And that has allowed us to reach, last year we graduated over 3,500 people from that program. And so kudos to the Office of the Special Advisor on Education and in Lagos State for driving that sort of program. There's a Ministry of Wealth Creation and Employment who we also work with to train unemployed young people who've already left the system in these same skills. And in that collaboration, we've been able to go to communities that we wouldn't normally get to go to. So we've gone to Ekpe, Mosum, I always forget the name of that. We've gone to Ikotun, we've gone to communities that we normally would not get access to, even in Ajagunle, so that has allowed us to at least scale up our reach.
Okay.
We're now working with the NYSC, so we're training core members here in Lagos who are going to then go into schools for 1 year in front of secondary school students. We're training them in the same curriculum so that they can go into secondary schools and in that 1 year start to build the same skills in the young people. Plus it will help the core members so that by the time they finish their youth service year, they're actually more employable and able to connect to a job. So we realize that working on our own is not going to cut it. Right now, we're working with 7 other NGO partners who are training different young people in different skills. So there's OPL Academy that's training people in construction industry. There's Knowledge Education Center that's training graduates. There's EduBridge Academy that's training graduates for financial sector jobs. So by teaching them the same soft skills to add into their curriculum, they're also building out a core of employable young people. So we understand that we can't do it on our own. The problem is growing by 1 to 2 million people every year graduating into the Nigerian labor force who do not have the skills to be termed employable.
Well, so far, what is the success rate of those you have turned out? And then I also want to ask you, I mean, we'll talk about this 21st century skills needed, required by employers. What are these basic skills, really?
So we do an annual survey of our alumni, so who once they finish the program 1 year out. And so the last survey we did of our alumni, about 2,000 of our alumni who graduated between 2013 and 2017, 75% of them are employed in self-employment or back in education and training.
75%?
Yes.
That's high.
And so we continue to work with the 25% who are still unemployed because we know that that's not good enough. In terms of what skills are required, a lot of people talk about the future of work and how even the skills that we have today are not going to serve us when you have now lots of jobs, accounting jobs, data management jobs, legal jobs that are being taken over by machines, by robots, by automation. But there are some skills that will transcend that. And so that's what we're focusing on. What are the things that will not change, even when you have a world of smart robots that are able to do so much more in the technical skills? Those skills are really things like the ability to take initiative, the ability to think critically and creatively. Multidisciplinary thinking is so important. The ability to take information from things that aren't even in your purview and to take them on and say, okay, you know what, I will tweak my opinion based on what you have just told me about science, even though I'm an economics major. The empathy is something we take for granted, but when you hear a lot of issues that happen with customer service, etc., it's because of a lack of empathy. No one has actually taught them how to take off their own shoes and put themselves in another person's shoes. You think about resilience and adaptability. So across the board, I would sum it up as it's the ability to learn. That is what will set you throughout life. I'm not concerned about whether robots take over jobs in the future, because if they tell me that the next skill I need to learn is Chinese, I'll go and learn the Chinese. I have confidence in my ability to learn, and that's what sets young people up to succeed throughout life.
Now, in terms of doing this in a far-reaching way, interacting with policymakers so that this becomes part of the educational policy, are you working in that direction? And what results are you getting?
We want to. That's why we're here. Hopefully, it is tough. I think working with government is a skill set. And that's a skill set that we're learning. Like we said, we have huge traction that we've made in Lagos State, and we know that that's not enough. I mean, Lagos State is the 1% of the 1%, right? How do we get into other state governments? And so, you know, now that the dust is settling on a lot of our elections, we're excited about taking what we have learned in Lagos to other state governments and saying, how do we partner with this? We're trying to do some work with the Niger Delta Development Forum to also see how we can take the same things that we've learned and say, look, it's not us coming in and doing it ourselves. Right now, you have a lot of other organizations just like us who are working with young people, but they're working in isolation from industry. How do we bring all parties together to start having that conversation? Employers who are frustrated that you cannot find the skill sets that you're looking for. Educators who are, or skill providers who are frustrated along with the young people to say, look, we're training, but you people are not absorbing our people. What is going on? Why are we, what's the friction and the mismatch? How do we bring government and the reformers, the curriculum design folks and say, look, let's all together sit and design what do we want to be? Because our young people are not globally competitive and we're falling behind, and it's not going to be oil, it's run out, it's running out. I think all the Middle Eastern countries have realized that is really your talent. If Canada and everybody else is welcoming our people with open arms because they know, look, we don't have the young population. And so the thing that we have that is our asset is the thing that we are sitting on and calling a ticking time bomb, a problem, as opposed to snapping out of it and saying, how do we harness it into the most competitive advantage as a nation, as a region?
Well, you have this debate about entrepreneurship and white-collar jobs. What really do the young people you interact with, which would they rather prefer? Because you hear governments, make the arguments that government really cannot provide all the jobs that you need.
Government is not a job provider.
Exactly.
They're not supposed to be.
Exactly.
Government is questionable. Yeah, I mean, they're not meant to be a job provider. Government is meant to create an enabling environment for businesses to be able to thrive. That enabling environment, part of that is the education infrastructure. It's not just power. We're talking about power. The education infrastructure. If businesses have access to the right talent, the talent will transcend the power issues. And so, yes, how do you get people into that phase of, look, there are not enough jobs. A lot of young people do actually want to own their businesses one day. However, the training ground of an entry-level job is what actually sets you up to succeed as an entrepreneur. There are some people who are, blessed and fortunate. The first thing they lay their hands on from the age of 15, they're setting up businesses and they're succeeding. But for a lot of us, it actually takes working with entrepreneurs as employees for a few years and developing those other skills, how to do business development,
how to understand that? Because when you look at young people in Nigeria, it's all about, let's make this money quick. Exactly. Let's arrive fast. Do they understand that patience, that you have to go through this process?
Yes, part of what we train on are some of those values around planning and thinking long term, starting small, learning fast, growing big, but you have to be able to start small. Nobody's saying don't dream big, but how do you start at the bottom of the right ladder and work your way up? That being said, there's a lot of impatience because the problem is so big and growing. And there's also this lack of trust where you say, look, I saw my parents invest 20-something years with the same employer, and then when it came time to pension, then their school fees were not able to be paid because they would see all of these things happening. So there's a lack of trust to say, look, I'm not going to go and bust my ass off. I'm not going to go and slave away for someone who will not guarantee me long-term success. And so that's why there's a lot of, I need to have my own thing. I just want to be independent. But that's not, the reality is even when you're an entrepreneur, that's when there's even more stress because you're working for all your customers. You're not just working for one person, your employer, all your customers. And so teaching them that entrepreneurship is complicated. And everybody can go and set up their own tiny stall and be a micro-entrepreneur and never really grow and only have a one-man store. Or you can actually take the time to learn these other skills through the world of work and then become an entrepreneur that can truly scale and change the game. We need more of those Dangotes. It can't just be celebrating the one person. We need more of them.
In a society where quick riches is celebrated, how is this your value catching on the young ones? Because they say a counselor, somebody around the neighborhood becomes a counselor, build houses, buy cars.
Pays their tithe and everybody's happy, nobody has
to how is this your value sinking with the young ones in this kind of society?
Yeah, no, our partners at the Ministry of Wealth Creation and Employment are always talking about this mindset orientation problem. That's really 60% of the battle. If you get people's mindsets to snap out of waiting for government to help me, waiting for a handout, just always waiting, as opposed to the agency of, you know what, I can do this. Even if I go and work for free for 1 month and find the work in my community so I'm not spending money on transport that I don't have. If I work for free for 1 month and I add value, the day I'm ready to walk out of the door, won't that employer say, okay, come, let's find some small thing just to, so it's, we always say at Wave, show me, don't tell me. When you're telling young people, you have to start small, they don't see the benefits of starting small. Who has hammered from starting small as far as they're concerned? Are we telling those stories? Are we building a narrative of people who've started small, learned fast, and grown big? They need to see it to believe it. You can't tell people, do that, and then me, I've done it something differently. So one is storytelling, changing the narrative. Two is showing them by actually putting them in those positions. We do a lot of impact stories, telling the stories of our alumni, how they started small. We had people who walked 2 hours every day to class, slept on a church on the floor because they needed to get access to the training and they didn't have transport money. Telling those stories about those people and looking at them now. Where are they 5 years later? They're now employers of labor themselves. Slowly, the narrative will start to change, but we can't sit around and just fold our arms and keep complaining. So we've just got to start chipping away at that problem. Like a mouse chips away at its big chunk of cheese. You just have to keep chipping away at it.
And that's a lot of work cut out for you. But what is in for Wave? What is in it for you?
So our team we're over 40 now. And a third of our team is actually made up of our alumni. So we are passionate about this problem or this opportunity because we are the ones who have been given the opportunity to actually transcend the circumstances that we were born into, that Nigeria has given us. And so what's in it for us is that level of altruism and passion. And then you see the young people taking advantage of this opportunity every day. And that just kind of gives you this energy to wake up every day and do it, even though the work is hard. In terms of just sort of how our reach and our influence has grown. In the past week, we've had emails from people in Cameroon, in Senegal, in Liberia, saying, hey, we've heard about your work and we would love to get smart. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. How can we work together? And those are those days where we're like, you know what? It's hard. And very few times do people come back and say, oh, thank you so much, Wave. But it kind of keeps us going.
So you're making waves.
We are. We love every pun you can think of in the universe about wave, waving flag, making wave. And we say, I say wave is waving. We have every pun under the book when it comes to wave.
So how do people get in touch with Wave?
So they can go on our website. It's www.waveacademies.org. And that's for young people who want to attend our academies. And that's for employers who want to recruit or people who want training for their existing staff, because we do run a corporate training arm where we train those same skills that we teach the young people. We train them to existing employees, and you see their performance also increase. And then for anyone else who wants to partner, we're part of this movement called Ready for Work.
Okay.
So readyforworkng.com, where any educator who says, you know what, I want to do better by my young people. I want to learn these skills. I want to figure out how to teach young people the skills required. Any educator, any policymaker, Ready for Work, it's bigger than WAVE, and it's really around how do we all align and rewire this education to employment system so that we're really delivering young people who are ready for work.
Well, that'll be all. Many thanks, Misan Rewane, for coming on the show. We really do wish you the best.
Thank you.
We know this is a lot of work, and all hands should be on deck. Thank you so much for coming on the show.